There's a particular kind of silence that settles into a home when you're exhausted, not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind. You're sitting in your chair, maybe the afternoon light is cutting across the floor and you can see it, the dishes. The pile near the door, the bed you didn't make 3 days ago, and instead of moving, you just sit there, not because you don't care, not because you've given up, but because somewhere between your brain and your body, the signal just isn't getting through. If you know that silence, if you've sat inside it and felt the guilt creeping in behind the exhaustion, then this conversation is for you. My name is John Marcus, and over the years I've spent thousands of hours sitting at kitchen tables and in living rooms with seniors who were dealing with exactly that feeling. Men and women who raised families, kept beautiful homes, worked long careers, now sitting inside that same heavy silence, wondering what happened to the person who used to handle everything. I want you to know something before we go any further. That person is still there, they're just tired. And tired people need a different kind of plan. What I'm going to share with you isn't a cleaning routine. It's a survival system. Specifically, it's built around something I call the 3-point rule, 3 precise areas of your home that, when addressed, prevent the chaos from swallowing everything else. But before I walk you through those 3 points, I need to explain why they work, because understanding the science behind this changed how every single one of my clients thought about their home on hard days. The science of overwhelm, why your brain shuts down. Researchers at Princeton University conducted a landmark study on what they called visual load. Essentially, what happens to your brain when it processes cluttered environment. What they found was striking in its simplicity. Visual clutter competes directly for your brain's attention. Every object out of place is a small, silent demand. A stack of mail, a dish on the counter, a bag left by the door. Each one sends a quiet signal to your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making and self-control, saying, "Handle me." Now, multiply that by 40 objects in a room. The cortex becomes flooded. Cortisol, your primary stress hormone, rises measurably. And here is the part that matters most for our conversation. The brain, overwhelmed by too many competing inputs, begins to shut down executive function. Executive function is your brain's ability to prioritize, sequence, and initiate tasks. When it falters, you don't just feel tired, you feel frozen. You know the dishes need washing. You know what to do. But the gap between knowing and doing feels like a canyon. Psychologists have a term for this: decision fatigue. Barry Schwartz, in his research on choice overload, demonstrated that the more decisions a person is forced to make, even small ones, the poorer the quality of subsequent decisions becomes. For a senior managing the complexities of daily life, a body that may not cooperate the way it once did, and a home full of visual reminders of undone tasks, decision fatigue isn't a minor inconvenience, it's a daily reality. And it is absolutely not a character flaw. There is also a framework developed by lupus patient Christine Miserandino that has become invaluable in understanding limited energy living. She called it spoon theory. The idea is this: imagine you wake up each morning with a limited number of spoons, units of energy. Every task costs 1. Getting dressed costs 1. Making breakfast costs 1 for a younger, healthy person. The spoon supply replenishes easily. For someone managing age, illness, grief, or chronic pain, the morning supply is already smaller, and every expenditure matters deeply. The 3-point rule was built for spoon-limited days. It is a system that asks for 3 spoons. No more. Critical focus number 1. The kitchen sink. Of all the visual anchors in a home, the kitchen sink carries the heaviest psychological weight. I've walked into hundreds of homes over the years, and I can tell you with complete certainty, full sink changes the emotional atmosphere of an entire house. It doesn't matter if the living room is tidy or the floor is swept. When that sink is stacked with dishes, the brain reads the whole home as out of control. This isn't a personal failing, it's neuroscience. The sink sits at eye level at the center of the room where you spend the most time during the day. It is in your sight line constantly, and every time your eyes pass over it, your stress response activates just slightly, not dramatically, but enough. Over the course of a day, those small activations accumulate into a deep, bone-level fatigue that you can't quite explain. The rule is simple: keep the sink clear, not sparkling clean, not scrubbed clear. If you have a dishwasher, plates go directly inches. If you don't, fill the sink with warm, soapy water and let dishes soak out of sight. The goal is one thing only: That surface must be open, free, empty. On a hard day, this is a task that costs roughly 2 to 4 minutes. Some days it's the only cleaning task that happens. And I want you to hear this clearly on those days. That is enough. That one act of clearing the sink tells your nervous system that you are still in control of your space. It resets something quiet and deep inside you. For those managing arthritis or limited grip strength, use long-handled scrub brushes that eliminate the need to bend your wrist at uncomfortable angles. Lightweight plates and non-slip mats at the sink base reduce the physical strain considerably. The ergonomic principle here is simple. Work at a height that doesn't require you to hunch, and use tools that extend your reach so your joints carry less of the load. Essential area number 2, the bed. The bedroom is the most intimate room in a home. It is where you are most vulnerable, where you sleep, where you heal, where you are most completely yourself. When it falls into disorder, the psychological impact is disproportionate to the actual mess. A rumpled, unmade bed in a cluttered room sends a message to your subconscious every single time you enter. This space is not safe. This space is not under control. Making the bed does not require perfection. Corners tucked with military precision. Pillows arranged symmetrically, none of that is necessary. What matters is this. Pull the top sheet up, smooth it loosely, and place the pillow at the head. That's it. 90 seconds, sometimes less. What those 90 seconds accomplish is profound. The room transforms, even if nothing else is addressed. A made bed creates the visual impression of order. And as we've established, visual impression is what your brain responds to. That impression lowers cortisol. It tells your nervous system that this space belongs to you and that you are tending to it. For seniors living alone or those going through periods of grief or illness, this matters enormously. It's an act of self-respect made physical. The ergonomic approach here is equally important. Rather than walking around the bed repeatedly, work from one side first, then move to the other in a single trip. Keep a lightweight, easy spread duvet or quilt rather than heavy layers that require lifting and repositioning. The goal is a motion that costs you as little as possible while delivering the full psychological benefit. Essential area number 3, the rubbish bin. The third point in the triangle is the most overlooked and arguably the most powerful in terms of immediate sensory relief. A full rubbish bin is not simply an aesthetic problem. It generates odor, it attracts pests, it occupies physical space in the room. And perhaps most importantly, it creates a low-grade, constant awareness in the back of your mind. You know it needs to go out. You've known for 2 days that knowing. Sitting there unresolved is a steady drain on your mental energy. Taking out a full bin bag is a task that takes under 3 minutes. It requires walking to the door, removing the bag, placing a fresh one inside, and returning. For someone with limited mobility, bin positioned near the doorway, with liner bags stored directly inside the cabinet beneath, it eliminates every unnecessary step. The whole process becomes a single linear motion. But here is what that 3 minutes delivers. Small, immediate, concrete victory. And on days when the body won't cooperate and the house feels like it's winning, small victory is not a small thing. It is the proof your brain needs that you are still acting, still maintaining, still here and in charge of your space. Small victories on hard days are not consolation prizes. They are the whole game: sink clear, bed pulled, bin emptied. Those 3 things, on the worst day you've had in months, constitute a complete act of homemaking. If you've done nothing else, you have done enough. The dignity of the home. A philosophy for hard days. I want to pause here and talk about something that doesn't come up in most cleaning content. Because most cleaning content is written for people who are simply looking for efficiency. This is written for something different. Over my years working with seniors, men and women in their 70s, 80s, and beyond, many of them navigating health changes, the loss of a spouse, the quiet grief of a body that no longer performs the way it once did, I have come to believe something deeply. The home is an extension of a person's dignity, not in the sense that a messy house means a person lacks dignity. Quite the opposite. The desire to tend to a home, even imperfectly, even on the hardest day, even when all that happens is that a sink gets cleared. That desire is dignity in action. It's the declaration that this space matters to me, that I matter to me, that I am still here, still present, still showing up for myself even when showing up means almost nothing at all. A home doesn't need to be perfect to be dignified. It needs to be inhabited with intention. One gesture of care, even the smallest one, is an act of intention, and intention repeated over time becomes a life. The expert mechanics, low-energy tools that change everything before we continue. A dedicated note on the physical side of all of this, because the right tools make an enormous difference. Microfiber cloths use dry or barely damp clean surfaces with almost no effort and no chemical smell. Keep them in every room, one on the kitchen counter, one in the bathroom, one near your chair. The moment you are passing by, one swipe of a surface takes 2 seconds and costs almost nothing. Long-handled tools, dusters, scrubbers. Mop heads with extendable handles. Eliminate the need to bend, crouch, or reach overhead. These are not just convenience items for anyone managing back pain, hip replacements, or balance concerns. They are the difference between cleaning being possible and cleaning being dangerous. Spray bottles with trigger grips reduce the hand strength required. Lightweight vacuum cleaners with swivel heads reduce the whole-body effort of floor care. No-slip mats in the bathroom and kitchen protect you while you work. And seated cleaning, yes. Cleaning while seated in a sturdy chair is entirely viable for wiping down lower cabinet doors, organizing a lower shelf, or managing a bathroom sink. The 5 and rest method. What 300 seconds can actually do here is a method I recommend to almost everyone I work with, and it comes from a simple, honest question: how much can a person who is genuinely exhausted accomplish in 5 minutes if they know exactly what they're doing more than they think? Significantly more in 5 minutes. You can clear a kitchen counter of everything that doesn't belong there, wipe down a bathroom mirror and sink surface, pick up every item from the living room floor and return each to its proper place. Empty a full bathroom bin and replace the liner, fold and put away the items on the foot of your bed. The method works like this. You look at the room and identify the single most visible problem, not the deepest problem, not the most important problem in the abstract, but the thing that, if fixed, would make the room look most different to someone walking through the door. You set a timer for 5 minutes. You address only that thing. When the timer sounds, you stop. You sit down, you rest, genuinely rest for 10, 15, 20 minutes. Then, if you have the energy, you choose one more visible thing and repeat. The rest is not optional. I want to say that again clearly, because every person I have ever shared this method with has at some point tried to skip the rest. The rest is not the reward at the end of the work. The rest is part of the method. Without it, the system collapses. The body and brain need the recovery window to make the next 5 minutes possible. Removing the rest doesn't make you more productive. It makes the next round impossible. 2 or 3 of these 5-minute blocks spread across an afternoon can change the visible state of a home entirely. And they do it without leaving you flattened on the sofa wondering if you've damaged yourself. The gift you give tomorrow morning. There is one final practice I want to leave you with, and it's the gentlest one of all. On the hardest evenings, the nights when you've barely made it through the day, when the 3-point rule was all you could manage and maybe not even all of that, there is one small act available to you. Not a cleaning task, kindness. A gift from the version of you that exists right now to the version of you who will wake up tomorrow morning. Choose one thing only. Leave the sink empty before you sleep. Set out your mug for the morning coffee. Place tomorrow's clothes over the back of the chair so you don't have to think about it at 7 in the morning when your brain is still waking up. One thing. That's all. Over time, this single habit creates what I think of as a quiet chain of grace. Each evening's small gesture making the following morning fractionally lighter. Less resistant, more possible. You'll start to notice it after a few weeks. The mornings feel different, not dramatically, but noticeably. And in a life where some days are genuinely hard, noticeably lighter mornings matter more than words can say. If any of this has spoken to something you've been carrying quietly, I want you to know you're not alone in it. There is a whole community of people who understand that weight, the exhaustion, the guilt, the gap between wanting to and being able to. If you'd like to be part of that circle, to keep receiving these conversations that treat you like the capable, wise, experienced person you are, the button to join us is right below this video. It would mean a great deal to have you here. Take the sink. Just the sink. Everything else can wait until tomorrow, and tomorrow is always a new beginning.